and gentlemen. Welcome to Retro Warriors, episode 486. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by Viable Human Chris Saturn.
Hi, Justin.
Number so high, 486 times we have done this.
We're coming up on 10 years, sir.
My God, 10 years.
Yep.
That's a lot. 500 episodes.
Yep.
Holy cow. Take that, every other podcast, basically, except for like a handful that have done more than this.
Yeah.
Holy cow. And also really continuously, too. There's no like 1.0, 2.0, or it's just kind of like the same.
Going.
You know, from start to finish. You think people would be tired of us by now. Maybe they are. Maybe they're sick of us.
Yeah. I mean, we're sick of us.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We're sick of ourselves, each other.
Yeah.
We're all just under contractual obligation to be here.
If Guy weren't here, we would have murdered each other years ago.
Right, yeah. That's why we do the show remotely, to reduce the chances of spontaneous homicide. No housekeeping this week. Thankfully, things are okay right now.
Yeah. Weird.
I guess. I mean, they're not like in the world or, anywhere really.
It's all those meteors.
I regret saying it at all. I'm going to talk about my week now.
Yeah.
All those meteors. We're going to have to send Ben Affleck up there to blow it up.
How many Ben Afflecks we got left?
Just the one.
Oh, shit.
We'll have to send Bruce Willis with him to make sure it's done right. It's okay. He's going to do it for Liv Tyler. Fuck. Now in my head, I'm trying to remember if the Ben Affleck one was Deep Impact or the other one. Armageddon. That's the other one.
I don't know if I don't know if Bruce Willis is in the shape to be going up to a meter these days. I hear he's not.
That's true.
Great.
He probably would decline.
Yeah.
Decline that. Yeah, that one made me sad. Now I've made myself sad again. Thanks, Saturn. I've been playing Final Fantasy. I got the Pixel remasters on Switch. I've been playing Final Fantasy 1. I'm a good chunk into the game. I'm just coming up on my third crystal.
I'm actually playing through Final Fantasy 2 on my Xbox through the Pixel remaster.
I've been seeing you doing that, and I've been thinking about trying Final Fantasy. I've never given Final Fantasy 2 a real shot.
It is very different.
Never have given it a real shot. Kind of curious about it. The first time I played it was Dawn of Souls. It was the early aughts. I was playing it on GBA. I finished the first game, and I went straight into Final Fantasy 2 and went, what the fuck is this? And then turned it off.
If you do play it, are you going to name your characters Fardo Mario Man?
No, I let him. I do the random names now. And this time, it picked Hubert for my Black Mage, which I think it did for you on a playthrough. I
always use Hubert now, ever since I think it was the PS1 version was where it introduced me to Hubert, but I remember him best from Pixel remasters.
And so now I'm also playing Hubert, the Black Mage. I just got my airship. I just got my class upgrades or whatever. And so I'm just kind of hunting down some spells and items, and then going to pick up those last couple of crystals.
Yeah.
So not much left. I've been really enjoying the Pixel remasters on Switch.
Well, now that they've gotten their updates that have added like the boosts and the ability to turn off encounters and stuff, they're very nice. Speedy games now.
It is so nice. They're much more efficient. They're faster. They're more fun. They're easier. The maps in them make it so that you really don't have to use a guide much at all, unless you really like. I've had to use a guide once.
If you're trying to 100% the achievements, it's worth using a guide. But on the Switch, you don't have that, so
I forgot where the fuck to get the Levastone, and so I did have to look that up. This is in the ice cave, And I remembered I'd run into it, and I couldn't figure out how to circle because you have to circle back around and fall on top of it.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, I kept missing that staircase. Like I didn't see it. And then I was like, oh, maybe I got to get something and then come back. And then an hour went by and I forgot that it was in there. And I was like, where do I get the Levastone?
I played the NES version of FF1 so many times that one, all the maps are just committed to my memory. And two, all the names from the bad translation are committed to my memory. So when you said Levastone, I had to stop and think, what is that? Oh, yeah, it's the thing that levitates. That makes sense. Because in my head, it's still the floater.
The floater?
Which sounds like something you left in the toilet.
Oh, I know what it sounds like. Because previously I've said the Dawn of Souls version of Final Fantasy 1 is my favorite, and I think the best one. I'm kind of starting to flip-flop. I do like the kind of Vancian style magic that it used, the original magic system before it does the MP thing.
Yep.
I've gotten to where I really do kind of prefer just knowing exactly how many times I can cast a spell without having to do math. So that's
the math is so instant for me that I don't care. It feels the same.
I don't. When it's like, oh, I got 100 MP and this costs 37, and then I want to cast, this, and it costs 15. I'm like, I don't know if I could do that.
That's such fast math to me that it does not even affect me.
No, my brain it can't. It's like, nope, I'm not going to tell you what that is. You're gonna have to get a fucking calculator, you idiot. My brain's very rude.
Yeah.
So that's been kind of like my before bed. I got like 20 minutes. I'm gonna play some Final Fantasy, and I think I might dovetail straight into Final Fantasy 2.
Yeah.
And just see how I found it. This go around. But also I have the remake of Romancing Saga 2 coming in the mail.
Yes. Yeah. Mine just arrived today.
And I still also have Star Ocean Second Story 2R Turbo Hyper Fighting,
all
whatever.
RPGs at once, Justin. It's fine.
I know, right? It's
I
got
saw
time.
You log into FF14 the other day.
I did, yeah. They had a free login thing, so I logged in and I got my my weapon thing for like post the first core content of the game, the whatever. Relic. And I got it. Of course, it's not nearly as good as the shit that I have.
Yeah,
but I glamored it onto my weapon anyway, so I could feel cool. I was playing it, and I always fall into the same thing of like. I watched some of the story, but a lot of it is just so fucking benign and boring, and a lot of the story beats you run into, like it's like all this lead. You have to talk to 5 different people,
right.
And then the 6th person you talk to, the actual story kind of starts.
Yeah.
And so I end up skipping a lot of dialogue and stuff, and the game turns into me run up to a person, skip, okay, teleport, talk to this person, skip, okay, teleport, watch one cutscene, get a little bit of actual story, skip, teleport. And I'm doing that, and in my head, I'm like, all right, as soon as I get through with this stuff, I'm going to get back to the real game. And then I always have this moment where I'm like, this is all there is. There's nothing else.
Until you get to a dungeon or a trial or something.
Yeah, and then I'll go play a dungeon, and it stresses me out so bad, and I get so much anxiety that I'm like, I want to turn it off now. And that's the cycle of MMOs for me.
I can't. I couldn't log into the free trial or the free gameplay because my subscription expired recently
too active too soon. Yeah.
That I'm not eligible.
I don't know. Like, I wish I could play every dungeon with NPCs. I would like that.
You can. There's very few that you can't.
I like the dungeons.
All the required dungeons you can play with NPCs.
Yeah, I need to spend more time doing it. It's my problem then is that it's really slow.
Yes, true.
You do it with NPCs and they take like the full 90 fucking minutes to get through them.
Oh, they usually take 30 minutes for me.
Well, they take me a while. I'm also slow and don't know where to go and don't know what to do or anything, so that doesn't help.
Even on new dungeons, if I run with NPCs, it's like 30 minutes max. But if I run with humans, it's like 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, and so it's just that kind of back and forth of like, do I want this? Do I not want this? And then parts of it I like, and then every now and then the story's interesting for a minute, but then they're like, all right, that was your interesting bit. Now you've got 15 cycles of talking and teleporting and skipping of people being like, yeah, I don't know, that's crazy that shit happened.
Once you get past the base game and get about halfway through the first expansion is when the story starts to find its groove and run at a decent pace. And it continues that way throughout the rest of the expansions.
I think that's what I'm trying to barrel toward. Right now I've got a shitload of quests that are like, hey, do the hard version of this dungeon.
You're still in the base game.
Yeah, so I'm like right at the end of it. I'm like, you get the hard versions of all the dungeons, you get the ultimate weapon or whatever, and then there's a little couple quest lines, and then that's kind of it, as far as I know.
The post level 50 base game is just as long as the pre level 50 base game.
So I have a shitload more.
Yeah, they released a ton of content during that time because it was such a wait till Heavensward.
So you're telling me after playing this game off and on for like 3 years, I'm only halfway to the good part?
Give or take, yeah.
Oh man, I just don't know if I have it in me.
It's rough to get through the 2.x content. Once you get past it, the story gets a lot better. But it is rough to get past a lot of that. Like early MMO, they don't have a whole lot of areas left. They don't have a whole lot of characters yet. So it's just kind of grinding.
And it's just the same fucking like 7 main characters all talking back and forth to you. And they're all really bland. Hopefully the actual characters get more interesting later in the story too, because the characters in the base game are just super fucking boring.
Yeah, they finally give them some personalities and some traits and everything. I would say by the time the third expansion starts, they all have some actual personalities. Or not the second expansion, the 3.0. whatever. But yeah, it does get better. But you have to serve your time going through that first area. I skipped most of the dialogue in Realm Reborn. And
yeah, I try not to. I try to be invested, but it's just so.
Well, by the time I started
worky.
reading the story, I was like, wait, who are these characters? And kind of had to look it up online, and that made it better for me.
Yeah. So I don't know. I have this dream of chipping away through the base game finally and getting to play the air quotes real game. I need to sit down and do all those hard dungeons with NPCs so that I can like actually get through them and learn them and stuff. And it's just tough, man. It's it's a thing.
And once you get there, it's pretty fun.
Yeah,
even that apparently area where you are right now, that's when I started really enjoying the game. As far as gameplay goes,
it's better. It's better than it was before, but it's still just like it's like finding out you're halfway up Mount Everest. You know what I mean? Where you're like, "Fuck, dude."
Yeah, I could just roll downhill from here, right?
Yeah. Or I could slide down on a corpse like Homer did, right? Isn't that what he did? Eating his applesauce bars. I also picked up MechWarrior 5 Clans, which I forgot was coming out. And so I had already been playing Armored Core 6, and then I picked up MechWarrior 5 Clans, which I've been greatly enjoying.
Nice.
It has kind of come out to middling to positive reviews. Most of the big complaints are, one, some people are having technical issues. I will say it's not very well optimized. I had to turn on DLSS to hit a solid 60, which is a lot because I'm on a 4080 and an i9 with 64 gigs of RAM, so it should run great. So optimization that needs to happen. I did have the game crash on me once, just straight crash all the way to desktop.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I'm probably 3 to 5 hours in, not super far in. Really super enjoying it. One, just because it's about the clans.
Yeah.
For people that don't know BattleTech, the clans are like so there's the inner sphere where all like the normies hang out. And then there was a bunch of people in the inner sphere that were like, fuck y'all, you keep having wars and you suck. And so they fucked off out to like deep space, right?
Yeah.
And so they've been out there for several generations perpetuating this like bizarre kind of tribal-esque warrior culture. And then this is the story of Clan Smoke Jaguar invading the inner sphere. And when they come back to the inner sphere's all fucked from, nonstop war for however many hundreds of years. Right. And all these people have just been literally training to be the ultimate soldiers with the ultimate battle mechs of all time. And if you are a BattleTech geek or if you like BattleTech mythos, they do the clans right. They really do. But that's kind of a problem because to make the clans feel different from the inner sphere, which the inner sphere people are supposed to feel kind of like, regular people, they wanted them to feel kind of alien. So in the mythos of BattleTech, they have some strange things. They have weird slang that they use and it's not explained in the game. They'll just say this weird slang and you're like, what the fuck does that mean? And then also, it's considered a slur for them to use contractions. Yes. Clan warriors do not use contractions. It is considered beneath them, and it betrays your ancestors to offend them with contractions in your speech.
Data would be all right there.
Yeah, he'd be fine. Yeah. But here's the thing. So MechWarrior 5 Clans, it's very much MechWarrior 5, but it tells the story of the clans. So you get to play clan mechs, which are way stronger than Inner Sphere mechs. And it's like cinematic story-driven linear game as opposed to the sandbox that was MechWarrior 5. So if you played MechWarrior 5 and you're like, this is fun, but I wish it was just kind of more linear level-based, kind of simplified. A lot of the UI, a lot of the mech building and stuff is simplified. If you wanted MechWarrior 5, but it was just kind of too much game for you, this might be right up this person's theoretical alley that I've invented. And it's got kind of weird mocap, and it's got a ton of cutscenes and voice work and stuff. It's very much the story of these people in this clan star. And that means there's a lot of them talking, and they can't use contractions. And so all of the dialogue feels very strange and robotic. But in the mythos of BattleTech, that is correct. That is what they fucking sound like.
Right.
But to people that don't know BattleTech, it looks like the worst fucking voice acting on purpose that you've ever seen in your life. It's terrible.
Nice.
And so a lot of reviews on Steam are like, what the fuck is happening? Did these people never see the fucking script? They're just reading it off the paper. Like, what's going on? And you're like, no, you don't understand. And then they have weird ass slang.
Yeah.
And it's like, the slang is contracted. This is the bizarre part about the Klingons.
If they consider a contraction to be offensive,
yeah,
would it be like super ultra extra offensive if somebody used a slang including a contraction? Like if somebody said
like ain't.
I was thinking like
yaunt to.
Like wanna or gonna or something.
Oh yeah, that would be offensive.
They add the contraction into a longer not word.
Yeah, they do mention it in a cutscene early in the game where they kind of touch on the fact that contractions are like this forbidden speech, but it's such a bizarre concept that anyone that doesn't know BattleTech probably won't realize what's being said.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing.
That's weird.
Now, as far as properly representing the clans in a story, it does a great job. Kind of too good of a job.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. But the game is really fun. The idea is that clan mechs come in stars, which is 5, instead of normal BattleTech formations, which is 4. Mm-hmm. So you get an extra person in your squad, which is cool. And clan mechs are like way hyper advanced. Mm-hmm. And in the game, you're running into mechs that you played in MechWarrior 5 and just fucking obliterating them. I mean, like, you're running up to shit, like, I ran into the starter mech from MechWarrior 5, just like a medium mech, and it just, like, went down in 4 seconds. Like, you're cutting clean through these things. And to compensate for that, all of the levels are these huge battles. They bring in multiple clan stars, and we're talking 10, 20, 25 mech battles going on.
Yeah.
And it's really, really fun and cool, and it leads to a lot of really cool cinematic moments.
Nice.
It's just super fun. I'm having a really good time with it. It's a much easier game. It's a much kinder game. If you were super into, like, if you're the kind of person where you're like, hey, I play MechWarrior 5 and I have 75 mods on it, you might be disappointed. Yeah. But if you played MechWarrior 5 and you're like, I don't know, it's cool, but like it's kind of complicated and I keep running out of fucking money and I don't really know how to customize my mech, this will kind of fix those problems for you. Like, you can still fully customize your mech, kind of. There are some weird limitations, but it also, because clan mechs use omnipods, so you can just drop it. It has like different loadouts you can just unlock and buy, and it just switches to another reasonable loadout instead of you having to be like, hey, is it a good idea to have 5 SRM4s and 50, things of ammo with no heat sinks? Is that good? I don't know. Who fucking knows?
I use omnipods when I'm doing my laundry.
Yeah, tied omnipods. Yeah. But yeah, it's for me, I'm loving it.
Nice.
I will say the motion capture on the faces is really kind of fucking Uncanny Valley-y looking. It's very like Xbox 360. You can see too much of everyone's bottom gums.
Oh no.
It's like their bottom lip is hanging down too low. So that's a little weird, and it's coupled with their weird speech patterns.
Right.
So it's kind of strange. And again, some efficiency problems that hopefully will get patched out.
Right.
But also a game that came out with, like, there's no battle pass. There's no, like, there's one DLC that comes for free if you buy the game early, and it's like some skins. There was a deluxe edition for some more money, but it's just like a soundtrack and some other shit. There's no battle pass. There's no expansion pass. There's no, like, there's no silver gold versions. There's just the premium that has the soundtrack and some other stuff. And then the normal $50 game. And that's it.
Nice.
And it's just kind of refreshing to get kind of
a full package,
an online cross-play game, day one Game Pass multiplayer, cooperative story-based campaign game that just kind of is its own thing.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's drip feeding you a game.
Yeah, and it's just really cool. Like, if you liked MechWarrior 5, then if what you liked about MechWarrior 5 was the ultimate sandbox, it's not that. It's very much like, this is the next level. Go into the next level now.
Nice.
But it's so cool. Like, the missions are so, because they're not like procedurally generated like MechWarrior 5, they're all hand tailored. You really get that big giant mech battle feel.
Nice.
So they really can kind of tailor the content, and you feel it. It really does. Because some of the like generated missions from MechWarrior 5, you're like, this feels like a generated mission,
Right.
These ones are all very multi-point, like, and they have kind of arcs to them and boss fights and stuff, and it's real cool. I'm very happy with it. I'm very impressed with it. The story is interesting enough if you're like a BattleTech geek. For people that are and want to know, it's about Clan Smoke Jaguar and their invasion of the Inner Sphere through the Draconis Combine and the Rosselhog Republic. And now I'm just speaking Greek to everyone else.
Yeah, you're just making up words now.
But you'll know what I'm talking. BattleTech people know the initial Inner Sphere invasion, right? They show up and they do their fucking thing. But it's cool. I'm kind of impressed that they kept so much of the kind of mythos of the clans, because it's so weird. Like, they do weird shit. Like, clans show up and it's this warrior culture. It's kind of like Klingons, right?
Yeah.
And so their whole thing is like they show up and they're like, they show up with their forces. And they want to talk to the other general of the other person's forces, and they bid away their units. So they basically say, I'll beat you with 10 of my guys not even in the fight. And the other guy goes, well, I'll keep 12 guys out of the fight. And they bid their own forces down, and then they fight. And in the story of BattleTech, the Inner Sphere quickly figured this out and realized that they could basically trick them into like bidding down to nothing and then kick their asses because they're too fucking proud to not bring in reinforcements, because they said they do it with 3 guys and a chihuahua, and then everyone else showed up with like tanks and helicopters.
Nice.
So that's I'm
chihuahua though.
I don't know. I don't know.
A battle chihuahua?
Yeah, battle chihuahua, I don't even know what that would look like. But yeah, MechWarrior 5 Clans, very much enjoying it. It's like $50, and it's I was reading a review, and someone's like, I think PC Gamer said they put in like 40 hours on the game. So yeah. I'm still early, so it seems pretty long though. Yeah. So I don't know. If you can handle weird sounding voice acting and just kind of uncanny valley mocap. What I do is when the cutscenes are going, I alt tab into Discord and I just listen to them like a radio play.
Yeah.
So I don't have to look at their weird mouths. And then I go back whenever it's done. What have you been playing, Saturn?
I'm still playing Silent Hill 2. I have a lot to say.
I see.
It's so good.
Yes. All right. Yes.
So I had mentioned last time how awkwardly optimized the PC port was. They've released a patch. And it fixes a lot. To the point where it plays on the Steam Deck pretty well.
Oh.
For a game that was barely playing on my high-end gaming PC, you do have to tinker with it a bit to get it to play right on the Steam Deck, because you have to turn on FSR, and the game thinks that the Steam Deck doesn't support FSR, so it grays out the option. So you have to kind of
like manually turn it on.
Yeah, you have to do some stuff in the configuration outside of the game in order to convince the game to let you turn it on. And then once you do, it can hang out around 30 frames per second. It looks like but it'll hang out around 30 frames a second, and that's playable enough.
Yeah.
Whereas on my main PC, it was still struggling to hit 30 frames a second until I realized that the game did not turn on any of the like super sampling or anything.
That'll do it. Yeah.
So once I went in there and turned on DLSS, I'm hitting 60 pretty consistently.
DLSS is just fucking amazing technology.
Yeah,
I'm so impressed with that shit.
Yeah, it runs great. I've got it running at 1440p with DLSS on, with the ray tracing off. If I turn on the ray tracing, it drops back down to 30 frames a second. But if I turn it on, I'm consistently 60, like not even a dip. And however, it does not support cloud save on Steam.
Oh.
I have never encountered a Steam game. Well, I may have, but it's been so long. It did not support cloud saves that I thought there was something wrong with how I was saving the game, or with the game itself.
You fucked it up.
Right. Yeah. And then finally I found people online that were like, why doesn't this support cloud saves? To which I responded, yeah, why doesn't it support cloud saves? Like, what is going on here? Which is just bizarre to me. That a game in 2024 on PC would not, a single player game in 2024 doesn't support cloud saves. That's
that's
bizarre.
A little nuts.
A bit nuts. But it does run well now that the patch has come out. However, the patch broke a part of the game to where you cannot progress.
That's a problem.
It is a problem. And so that was, unfortunately, I'm not there yet, so I'm not too worried about it. And they said they're already working on the patch and hope to have it out as quickly as possible. They're just waiting for approval from both Konami and from Valve and
the
Sony.
one goat at Konami is trying to find his stamp to approve it.
Apparently they have pushed it to Konami, and Konami has to push it to Valve and Sony and get everything approved so that it can be pushed through. So they are working
patiently
on it.
Waiting.
Yeah. But as far as the actual gameplay goes, that's the part I wanted to talk about.
Yes.
So One, I had seen some reviews early on that were like, there are way too many mannequins in this game. And
All right.
And my thought was, well, yeah, it's Silent Hill 2. There are a lot of mannequins in this game. I did not understand what they meant was there are too many of them in the game. and so like, so one of the main enemy types is a mannequin. And the thing about the mannequins is they can hide. Whereas most enemies in the game, your radio goes off all the time to let you know that there's an enemy nearby. But a mannequin, if it stands motionless, your radio doesn't go off because it is a mannequin now. It's not a monster. It's just a mannequin.
Right.
And so you don't hear them, and they like to run around corners and hide right inside a doorway so that when you walk through, it can slap you.
Oh, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah, it's almost funny eventually. Once it happens enough times, you're like, you little son of a bitch. But there's so many of them that you start to become paranoid every time you walk through a doorway. You're like, all right, where are you assholes?
Yeah, where's it coming from?
Which corner are you hiding in, you little dumbass? And it gets to the point where it becomes a comedy where you're just like panning the room and you see this mannequin like obviously hiding behind a lamppost that it cannot fit behind. You're like, I see you, you dumb piece of shit.
Yeah.
And now I've been seeing a bunch of videos that Silent Hill fans are sharing with each other of watching the mannequins try to hide real quick. And it's like you walk into a room and you just see this mannequin like sprint over and like hide behind something it clearly cannot fit behind.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know, we just saw you, buddy, right? Like, we all know you're there. And it's just like trying to stand still. It's the dumbest shit. It's great.
Yeah.
But there are way too many of them. They are everywhere. And then when you get to the second half of the game, mild spoiler for people who haven't played the new version yet. In the original, there was just mannequins. There were mannequins throughout the game. It's the lower half of its body is legs, and the upper half of its body is also legs. And it just slaps you with its upper legs. And that's all it was. But in the new version, once you get to the prison and the labyrinth, which is the scariest part of the game, I got to an open area and there was a mannequin, and I was like, I got you, you bastard. You don't have anywhere to hide. And then it started crawling up the wall like a spider.
Oh. And
I'm like, no, ma'am, get down. That is not acceptable. And so now they crawl on the walls and ceilings, and I was not prepared for that at all. But one thing I will say that is very, very good in this game that I really appreciate that harkens back to older games is that when I encounter a puzzle, I only get, whatever hints the game feels necessary to give me. And those hints might be several rooms away. And it took me a while to realize how refreshing that was. Cause like I'd recently played through, the Horizon Zero Dawn games, and I'd played through the Tomb Raider games and everything. And in those games,
where everything lights up yellow or whatever to show you what to do.
Right. And even if, you don't immediately catch it, either your character or a secondary character will be like, I wonder what will happen if you plug this piece into that one component across the room that is glowing.
And it's got to be a 45-second cutscene you have to sit through where they come to this conclusion slowly.
And if somehow you skipped that cutscene, while you're standing there, somebody will be like, I better swing over to that ledge. You're like, motherfucker, shut up. Give me a second to figure this out.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, James does nothing at all. You're just like stuck with some puzzle pieces and you're like, fuck, what does this go into this with? And it's got the multiple puzzle difficulties just like the original. So you can play it on stupid mode, or you can play it on normal mode, or you can play it on obtuse mode, where not only does it not always give you all the pieces, but it speaks in riddles and tongues to where you have no idea what the fuck it's trying to tell you. Which is how I'm playing it. I'm playing it on obtuse difficulty puzzles. Yeah. And they are obtuse. They are properly obtuse. It is challenging to get through the to figure out what they want me to do with some of these puzzles, but I'm appreciating that. Also, I do just want to mention that James, the character, is an idiot. He was an idiot in the original, but he is similarly an idiot now.
He's an extra idiot now.
Like there is a point in the original and in the new one where you're trying to find some puzzle pieces to solve the puzzle. And one of the rooms you can go to in this dilapidated apartment complex has a toilet that is filled to the brim with shit, like liquid shit. And James's first thought is better just dig in there up to the shoulder to get that puzzle piece.
Oh, no
clue that there is a puzzle piece in there. He's just like, better dig my hand in there. And then he pulls out a puzzle piece. And there's another scene where he just digs into a hole in the wall. No idea what's in there. There could be monsters. There could be a trap. Just digs shoulder deep into a hole in the wall and pulls out a puzzle piece. And he's just an idiot. In the new one, it does show the shit still on his hand and sleeve for like a good 5 minutes, which that's
Jesus
fucking
Christ.
gross. And then like minutes later, he meets a character and tries to shake her hand. It's great. But it's he's dumb. But in the new one, there's a sequence where you're on the second floor of a building, and there's a hole in a wall, and it's just like the inside of a wall, like in the drywall. There's the parts that make up the wall, and then the drywall, and there's a hole in the drywall. And this dumbass thinks I should climb down to the first floor from here, just inside the wall. And of course,
like you do.
Yeah, and of course the wood breaks, and then he's just stuck in between two pieces of drywall on the first floor and starts kicking at the wall like, dumbass, what did you think was going to happen here?
He thought it would magically work out, Saturn.
Right? I mean, he does.
That's what he thought.
And then it turns out there's a file cabinet in front of him that he's kicking through, so he does push through it and get through the wall, but I'm like, what? Why did you think this was a good idea? Why did you decide to do this? And so he is an even bigger idiot than in the original, but I'm still just really enjoying the game. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's everything I wanted it to be.
Finally, there's a Silent Hill of any variety,
right?
that is worth playing.
Yeah, it's so good. So good.
Let's do some news.
Yes, sir.
Discord says it shouldn't have to comply with piracy subpoenas because it would violate users' First Amendment rights.
I agree.
I also agree. I'm glad that Discord, granted, let's not pretend like Discord isn't selling shitloads of your data and scanning it and everything else, but, a minor win for the user here.
Yeah, I appreciate they at least pretend to have a backbone for a minute.
Right, for like 1 minute.
Yeah, for almost a full minute.
They still want me to buy a bunch of shit in their shop, even though I still give them $10 a month.
Yep.
But I digress.
Yeah.
That's something. That's it's not everything, but it's something. Yeah. I think that's more than we're used to getting. City Connection is releasing 2 more Saturn tribute games, Data East's Wolffang and Skullfang. I'm unfamiliar with either of these Data East games, and I'm a Data East fan.
I have also not played them. Oh, they were Japanese Saturn exclusives.
That would be why then.
But I believe they are. I believe they're 3D shmups. I could be lying, but I believe that is the case.
Denuvo's Discord server was suspended after getting inundated with hate messages. I can't imagine why anyone would hate Denuvo.
I can't imagine. It just seems baffling.
Denuvo's spokesman says that gamers just don't see the value of Denuvo.
Yeah. Oh, well, maybe they should.
He went on to make this argument about how, as a gamer, because he's a gamer, he understands that when you look at Denuvo, it's hard to see what the value is. But the value is that since pirates can't pirate the game, which is patently just not true because they do all the time.
They do. Usually within a week.
Because they can't pirate the game, the games get more content.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what actually happens is the pirates pirate it anyway, and Denuvo makes the game run like shit. That's what actually happens.
So fuck that guy.
By the way, I did look up Wolffang and Skullfang. They're 2D shmups.
Okay.
Saturn,
well, that's
and they
exciting.
look really good, so I might have to pick those up.
Banjo-Tooie was added to Nintendo Switch Online Plus.
Yes.
So you're welcome from Microsoft, I guess.
If you enjoy the collectathons, that is now available.
Taito Arcade Memories Volume 2 for the Egret Mini released. Currently selling for $500 for what is basically an SD card of ROMs.
No, it's literally an SD card of ROMs. You can make your own.
So I'm glad that this Egret Mini, which for people that don't know is one of these little mini arcade machines, uses SD cards for expansion. That's a great idea. This is just a fucking shit show.
Well, it didn't retail for $500. It just sold out immediately.
Right? No, I know that, but it's just. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Right. And it's just 10 ROMs on an SD card.
Modders got Windows 95 running via DOSBox on a Nintendo 3DS. Slow weekend, I guess. Nothing else going on, biding their time till the Christmas season. So fuck it. Let's get weird as shit with it. Why not?
And I wonder how the performance is, if it could run any actual Windows 95 games.
I wonder too.
Because that would be just a shit show.
Sony lost a lawsuit against cheat maker Daytel over a MotorStorm PSP cheat software. What year is it? What year? Did we just go back to 2007? What just fucking happened?
This lawsuit has been going on for over a decade.
Holy shit. MotorStorm PSP?
Yeah, so Daytel, who you probably remember from making the Action Replay.
Yeah.
They apparently still exist. I was pretty stoked to hear that. And they had released some sort of cheat software device thing for MotorStorm on PSP, and Sony sued them. And this lawsuit has been going on for fucking ever, and the court finally sided in favor of Daytel, which good, they should. But I'm shocked that they've been able to survive this very, very long lawsuit. I'm glad they're still around, but I can't imagine for how long, because what are they even doing these days?
This is whenever people in the chat are like, how come the emulator people don't fight this in court? This is why.
Yeah.
Look how long this fucking... Could you imagine being just one person stuck in court for a decade with Sony?
Yeah.
Holy shit, man. Fate worse than death.
Right? I can't imagine how long or how much it would cost to pay lawyers for this long. A lawsuit that looks like the case started in 2012.
Yeah.
And it just ended this last week.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Super Nintendo World at Universal Orlando will open
Epic
on
Universe.
Fuck it, the thing. You know the thing.
Yeah.
The other fucking park is going to open May 22nd, 2025. So you can go punch a question mark block and ride a Yoshi or whatever you do there. I don't know.
Yeah, Epic Universe will open on May 22nd alongside Super Nintendo World. And it's also got a new Harry Potter park in it and some other thing that I've already forgotten. I may get a chance to go before it opens.
Oh, that'd be cool.
My friend that works there, he said they're going to have a Friends and Family Day before the park opens, and he's going to try to get me admission. So
how exciting.
We'll see if I can go check out Super Nintendo World before it opens.
Star Citizen may be running out of money after $700 million of investments. Listen, everyone.
That's a scam.
It's a scam. Star Citizen is a scam.
Yeah.
Don't give them money.
No.
If you did give them money, just stop. Stop giving them money. Please stop.
Right.
They're not making the game. We have reports that there is no effort to try to finish the game being made. It's a scam.
Yeah.
This is a scam. Just stop. Yeah. Please stop. Vampire Survivors Castlevania DLC announced coming October 31st. It feels almost quaint after all of this.
Yeah.
To get almost boring to get Castlevania DLC after all of this.
Well, think about all the weapons they might add. There might be a whip. It could be holy water, a crossbow.
They might add vampires to the game. I don't fucking know.
No, they won't add a vampire to the game.
They've already got like joke versions of every major Castlevania character. Who the fuck are they going to add? What are they going to name him? Actual Simon Belmont?
Yeah, they are going to have Simon Belmont. Did you see the preview trailer?
I've not. No, I like to save them until it's out.
Oh man, it's gonna have like 30 characters from Castlevania.
Holy shit!
I don't know if it's that many, but it's a lot. And it showed them all next to their Vampire Survivors equivalent, like they were like mirror universe versions of each other.
Yeah,
and it's gonna have a bunch of like bosses from Castlevania that have not been in Vampire Survivors, and of course a bunch of music and stages and stuff. So I'm very excited. It looks really cool.
I'm so ready to be an old garlic man playing a Contra level, listening to Bloody Tears or whatever the fuck is going to be happening.
Yeah, that's basically it.
It's going to be awesome.
I do think it's funny that Konami added Contra shit to Vampire Survivors before
Castlevania.
That's great.
I don't know. It's that Konami goat. He hit the wrong button. 47% of UK Switch players are women.
What is a women?
I know. Only half of everybody, apparently. That's shockingly high. Even in 2024 for video games, that's pretty high to me.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
That is a good diversity metric to see, and we want to see more of that. So, can maybe some women show up to PC gaming? I know it's a horrible place to be.
Yeah, it really is.
But if you could just tough it out to get some of these assholes out of here,
just stay muted. It's fine until you're the majority.
They'll vacate and go somewhere else.
Right.
Netflix shut down their AAA Team Blue game development team without ever releasing a game because fuck video games, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't remember his name. Somebody who was a developer on Halo for many years Apparently, he may be going back to the Halo team after being fired from the Blue team that never happened.
What have they been doing all this time?
I don't know. I'm guessing they were developing something, so it was presumably canceled as well.
Yeah. Well, it's almost as if people don't go to Netflix for gaming.
Yeah, that's weird. Aren't they?
And Netflix keeps trying to get me to play phone games on Netflix. Yeah, keeps wanting me to play this Kardashians game on Netflix. And I'm like, I just wanted to watch Seinfeld for the 17th time this year. I don't want to play a Kardashians phone game.
Yeah.
If I wanted to do that.
My Netflix subscription, they got way too expensive and they're about to have another price hike. I just can't.
It's too high. My daughter watches the shit out of Netflix, though. So that's my hang up.
The few shows I want to see on Netflix, I just put on my Plex server.
Yeah, that's what I did. Falcom wants to speed up localizations by using AI translations.
Don't do that.
Let's just not do that. Please don't do that and just say you did.
Yeah.
Just please.
And the thing is, the Western localizers for Falcom's games have said repeatedly, just like, give us your script earlier so that we can have it done when the game is done. And they've started doing it for the Chinese translators. But for the Western translators, they're like, no, we'll give you the script when the game is done.
No, we'll get a robot to do it.
Yeah.
I really hope that the next Falcom game comes out and every dialogue box starts with, as a large language model, comma. Ubisoft shut down the Prince of Persia Lost Crown team because they didn't make all the money in the universe.
Yeah.
This
is also the team that made the Rayman reboot games. Years ago.
Apparently, because people were discussing this in the news discussion channel while we were recording tonight, and from the article, they were expecting the game to sell similarly to the biggest Metroidvanias in the market, and the game has sold about 1 million units at the time of writing.
That's pretty good.
So for a small game like that seems like a success. But apparently they wanted more.
Well,
that
Prince of Persia is such a huge name in video games right now.
Right, clearly. I mean, that Jake Gyllenhaal movie is huge. Did you see him? He was fucking jacked as shit in that movie.
Wasn't that more than 10 years ago now?
Shut up. I just want to talk about his sexy abs. Just let me think about him and leave me alone.
That was almost 15 years ago that movie came out. I don't even know when the last Prince of Persia game came out.
And yet, Jake Gyllenhaal, still sexy as hell. Finally, Sony has removed the resume activity option in the newest firmware because fuck features. Buy a PlayStation 5.
That was their almost quick resume feature, which I only ever encountered one game that even supported it.
Yeah, apparently developers need to support it on their end. It's not just a thing the OS does, which I think is different than how Xbox does. I think Xbox is an OS level thing.
Because the Xbox just literally suspends the game.
Yeah, it just makes a page file or whatever.
Yeah, and whereas on the PlayStation, what it would do is it would load your most recent save file, but place it in a specific point that the developers had considered to be part of this activity, so that instead of wherever you stopped, you would just take your save file and load it in that specific point, but it would skip all the intros and developer screens and all that shit and just start the game immediately at that point, which was neat. Not super helpful. I would rather just resume from suspend and keep my system in
stupid.
Sleep mode.
Just say that they did it stupid. That's all you got to say. They did it stupidly.
It was Sony's best idea of how to do it without having to create a suspend point, apparently.
Yeah,
but it's gone now.
Yeah. Which brings us to our topic at hand.
Was it?
Which is Samus, Mr. Halo's girlfriend.
It's pronounced Seamus.
Seamus Aran, the most Irish Nintendo character.
Yeah.
Shamu's Aran. This week we're talking about Samus.
Yes.
This is our kind of history of character series thing. We did one on Luigi before.
Yeah.
Also known as Green Mario.
And I think we did Mega Man.
Did we do a Mega Man?
I believe so.
Huh. I don't remember that. We've done so many of these. Who's to say?
And I like that every time we discuss doing one of these, you say, we talked about doing these, but we never done one yet. And every time I have to say, no, we did. We did that before.
If you fucking say so. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Look, man, I do a lot of podcasts. I don't know where I am anymore. I don't remember doing them after I finish them. The words just tumble out of me.
Yeah.
and then you all have to put up with it. So here
That's
we
true.
are. Biographical info without Power Suit, and this is according to Super Metroid Nintendo Power Player's Guide, so it's dated. Just putting it out there. I don't think these are any longer Samus's stats.
Maybe we don't know.
Seamus now. It's like in my head.
Seamus.
6'3", 191 centimeters, 198 pounds, 90 kilograms. Which is not super far off from my height and weight. I'm 6'2" at 208, so
basically a Samus.
I'm basically a Seamus. With Power Suit, this is according to the Metroid 2 Virtual Console Instruction Manual. Height 6'3", 190 centimeters, weight 200 pounds. So she put on 2 pounds
By putting on the Power Suit, but no height whatsoever.
No,
Despite
it's somehow it crushes into her skin. I'm starting to think that maybe these statistics aren't accurate. And of course, later when they sexified her, they made her smaller because apparently women aren't allowed to be sexy and tall. I guess I don't fucking know why they would do it.
She's still supposed to be tall, just not as tall.
I want 6'3" Samus.
Yeah, me too.
So Smash Bros. Ultimate Dev Team videos imply other stats. 5'9" in Zero Suit, 5'11" in Power Suit. She only gains 2 inches.
Yeah.
In the full Power Suit?
Apparently, yeah.
Which is not how physics work.
No.
Maybe the Power Suit crushes her body into it. She does crush into a little ball. So she is crushable. We know this.
Yeah.
We know that Samus is crushable.
Unlike Kirby. That would break his bone.
You don't want to crush his bones. Is the problem with crushing Kirby.
I like that we're totally fine with Samus falling into a ball, but when we were talking in the chat about Kirby falling into a ball, you're like, no, that's impossible. That can't happen.
Crush his bones.
Yeah.
This is why in Kirby's Dream Course, when he scrunches down small, he turns all red from the strain of being crushed.
I see. Except for in literally every Kirby game, he does flatten into a pancake every time.
Kirby's Dream Course is the pinnacle of Kirby physics. We all know this. Everyone accepts this in the Kirby fan universe.
I don't believe that's true now.
Created by Makoto Kano. First appearance was, of course, Metroid, which is an FDS game on the 6th of August, 1986. Most recent appearance in Metroid Dread, which hit the Switch in 2021, and Metroid Prime Remastered, which is, of course, a remake of an older game, in 2023. As far as first encounters, my first encounter with Seamus
was Kirby's Dream Course.
My first encounter with Samus was Metroid Prime. I didn't have Super Metroid growing up, and a lot of my NES and Super NES games were very based on what my brother had, and so he didn't have them. And then N64 came out, and I didn't have Smash Brothers. He did, and there wasn't a Metroid game on N64. It skipped that system, and so GameCube came out, and that was. My N64 was my first console that was like mine and only mine. And eventually my brother got one too, but it was mine. The Super Nintendo we had to share, the NES we had to share. Yeah. But I got my N64 and then there wasn't a Metroid. And then I got my GameCube and there was a Metroid. It was Metroid Prime. Yeah. And Prime was really, I played the demo at a Toys R Us. And I was so excited. And I remember it was one of the first games. Because, I mean, God, what would I have been? What was Prime? Was it 2002
or 03, I think?
So I was like 12, 13-ish.
Yeah.
So I'm right at that age of like, I've got my own money to buy my own games. And I'm like tracking release dates when stuff comes out, and I'm excited about it. And I remember calling Toys R Us because I didn't know when it came out. And so I would call them just like every week and be like, hey, is Metroid Prime out? And I'll never forget I called and I have a lot of anxiety. I know this, nobody knows this about me. I have a lot of social anxiety. I don't like making phone calls. And I had to call my mom was like, if you want to go get that game, call and make sure it's out before I drive your ass up there. Yeah. And I called Toys R Us after having played Metroid Prime like the week before. And I'm like, is Metroid Prime out? 12 years old.
Yeah.
And I hear the lady on the phone pull the phone away from her face and go, I'm looking for a game, Meter Maid Prime. Do we have that?
Nice.
And I fully heard her say Meter Maid Prime.
Yeah.
And then he listens to someone for a second and comes back and is like, yeah, we don't have that. And of course, being an anxious 12-year-old boy, I was just like, okay, thank you.
Didn't think to call a game store.
That was my problem.
Yeah.
Should have called a game store.
Yeah.
But then I went from Metroid Prime back to NES Metroid. Because I played Metroid Prime and then I was like, this is great. I know this Samus character has been around. I know Metroid is a thing. And so I got my mom to go on eBay and buy Metroid on NES for me. And it was like $5 and like $2 or $3 to ship. It's crazy for an NES game. We were going down on the Funko in this area, getting NES games for like 50 cents.
50, yeah.
And I got that and I played that, and then that kind of dovetailed straight into Zero Mission and Fusion, and then the rest is history, obviously. But yeah, Metroid Prime was really my intro to Samus as a character.
Yeah, I'd rented the original when we had our NES, and I just found it too difficult and too awkward to control. I mean, I was used to games like Mega Man that were much punchier,
snappier,
and so I just found it to be too difficult, especially because every time you die, you reset to 30 health, and
it's a brutal game.
Yeah, it's a frustrating game. So I kind of ignored it and didn't plan on playing any of the others. And then when I got my Game Boy, we had Metroid 2 with it because I bought my Game Boy used and it came with a bunch of games. And so I had played a bit of Metroid 2 and I was much more interested in that one. But I still found it pretty tough just because of how big she is on the screen. You don't have a whole lot of real estate to see around. So it was difficult for me to wrap my head around where I was a lot of the time because of how small the screen space was.
Yeah, which really was a selling point, how big the sprites were on it. But also, it makes it tough.
Yeah. And so by that point, I already knew that Samus was a woman. Nintendo Power had made that very clear during the marketing for Metroid 2. And Metroid 3, Super Metroid, I didn't immediately pick up. I wasn't super stoked about it just because I was kind of meh on Metroid 2. But my neighbor got it, and he got super into it. And I remember going over to his house and seeing him play it for a while. I was like, oh, that does look good. And so I ended up renting it and really getting into it. And then we ended up getting a copy used the next time we went to Funcoland. And I played through Super Metroid so many times, just fell in love with it. And then was upset for years because there were no new Metroid games for many years.
Yeah.
Almost 10 years there. So I was anxious and waiting for the next one by the time Prime and Fusion came out.
Tell me about the kind of development and creation of Samus as a character.
Yeah. So, according to Metroid's co-creator, Yoshio Sakamoto, a member of the development team came up with the idea of making Samus a woman midway through development, and the rest of the team agreed. That was the entire story they told. And when asked who was it that came up with the idea, no one could remember. And no one has come forward to take credit. Which I don't know if that's just like a Nintendo culture thing that nobody wanted to be the one that takes credit for a thing. Right. But no one has taken credit for it in all of these years. The decision was made by the team collectively because, again, there's no individual involved. Right. The decision was made to intentionally obscure her gender by using masculine terminology in the instruction manual so that her appearance would be a bigger surprise when it came out at the end of the game. And this carried over to the Western manual as well, though it's no longer known anymore if the manual's localizers were in on the reveal or if they just literally translated the Japanese manual.
I suspect they weren't.
Yeah, because the Western manual straight out calls Samus a man multiple times.
Yeah.
So it's unclear if that was intentional or not.
Yeah.
According to the devs, her appearance was inspired by Sigourney Weaver in Alien, obviously. That's
not shocking.
Clear one there, as well as Kim Basinger in My Stepmother is an Alien.
That was a film.
That is a film.
Was indeed a film.
Clearly, they could only pick women who were in movies with the word alien in the title.
Right. Yeah, that was the rule.
That was the rule. I never associated her with Kim Basinger before, but I guess so.
I don't I don't see it, but also I don't know. Her original appearance in the NES game, it's not very high fidelity anyway. There's not
Yeah,
you know.
And on the NES, her hair color would change depending on if it was the ending scene or if you were playing as her using the cheat code or whatever. So, seeing her there and in magazines showing it, I had no idea what the fuck she was supposed to look like. But the developers did say they always intended her to be blonde. They just didn't show it in the artwork because, again, they were trying to surprise people. So no one knew what she looked like from the artwork until Metroid 2, really.
Yeah.
And then they started making it much more clear that she is intended to be blonde.
Yeah.
And she wasn't given any in-game dialogue until Super Metroid. And even then, it's only in the prologue. And it's just that brief monologue that she gives.
Yeah.
So her dialogue and her backstory really wasn't cemented until Fusion.
Very retroactive backstory added for Samus.
And by that point,
go ahead. I mean, I was gonna say like there's because we're not gonna go into her full current backstory,
right?
Because it gets deep. I mean, there's a 7-volume manga.
Yeah.
There's the entire Nintendo Power comic. Like, there's a lot of.
Well, the Nintendo Power comic is no longer canon.
Right, it's not canon, but it's still a story, it's an origin.
Right.
Like where she stands now, I think a lot of her stuff is kind of lifted from the manga.
Yeah.
Like her parents. I was excited to learn about her parents, Virginia and Rodney, which I don't know why Samus's dad being named Rodney is funny to me.
I don't think the manga is considered canon either.
Is it not? Because I was curious about that.
Because in the actual canon, as it's considered, she is raised by Chozo entirely. Like, there are no humans in her childhood.
Because when you look up her biography, because obviously there's like 100 different Nintendo and Metroid wikis and everything. Some of them just straight up cite the manga as her backstory. Yeah, other ones cite only what you see in video games.
Right. And so it's the canon story as far as the games are considered. She obviously had human parents because she is a human.
Right. Rodney and Virginia.
Right. But she is raised by Chozo her entire life. So
yeah.
But also some of this may be more clarified in the Prime games, and I have no idea what's going on in the Prime games, so I can't.
Yeah, I only got through Prime 1. Prime 2 I played a good chunk of. Prime 3 I physically couldn't play because the motion controls, like it just literally didn't
play
work.
Any of them, none of them work for me. I can't play it.
Yeah,
I find them unplayable in general.
But my point was, there's a lot of Samus narrative floating around that we just don't have time to get into. This is more her evolution visually as a character in Nintendo games.
Right.
Just to be super clear, because the manga is long as shit, and even really the Nintendo Power story is like, it's like 4 or 5 volumes of several pages of Nintendo Power comic.
Right.
Which I think we did kind of go into depth on our episode where we covered the Nintendo Power comics, because I did read through all of them then. Where were we?
Oh, so Morphball. Her background was mostly in Fusion, and then they expanded on it in Other M, which
unfortunately expanded on it in Other M. Yeah. This is when we meet Adam. This is when she's I think, because here's the thing, I liked Other M.
Yeah, it's okay.
The story is terrible, but I liked the game. But it's the first time that we really see her being a subordinate.
Yeah.
And that gives, because, she very much, like Ridley from Alien, was kind of painted to have this sort of like badass bounty hunter vibe, like
Ripley from Alien.
What did I say?
Ridley.
We're not Ridley. Ridley's the pterodactyl.
Yeah.
Ripley from Alien.
Yeah. Ridley Scott from Alien.
Yeah, right. It's confusing. and so she's very much kind of painted to be this badass bounty hunter, and that's kind of backed up in the Prime games. Where she's this sort of badass solo bounty hunter that's this like legend, very much a Boba Fett character.
Yeah.
And then in Other M, all of a sudden, she's like this subordinate to this random fuck dude.
Right. And
in Fusion, it gets it kind of fringes on it a little bit.
Yeah.
We get the mention of Adam for the first time.
And they established that her nickname is Lady.
Yeah, people didn't love that in Fusion to begin with, but also it was just kind of an illusion. We're just sort of like, it's alluded to that she had a superior officer named Adam.
And I assumed, playing through Fusion, that this was when she was very young. I was thinking this was like right out of school Samus learning how to be a badass. She has this supervisor. And then Other M comes out and it's like, no, she's already a grown ass adult and she's already got her power suit and everything before she even meets Adam.
Yeah, she's literally in a fire zone, melting inside of her suit, waiting for a man to tell her she can flip the switch that lets her not die.
Right.
It's it's a different fucking vibe.
Yeah.
It really is a different vibe for Samus. It's the first time we really see her being fully a subordinate to someone.
Subservient, basically.
And it was not a good feeling story-wise.
Anyway. As far as the Morph Ball is concerned, they apparently created the Morph Ball completely out of laziness, which I appreciate that they admit to that. The team did not want to animate, quote, a cyborg crawling on all fours. Because in the original game, before they decided it was going to be Samus the woman, it was just a cyborg in space. That was the original concept for Metroid. And so they eventually decided that the solution was to make the cyborg transform into a ball. And then when they did decide she was going to be a woman, they're like, fuck it, we already have ball form. So she just gets to become a ball sometimes. So, women become beach balls sometimes. That's just how life works.
All the time. I was at the beach last week and a woman turned into a beach ball.
And then they turn into a butterfly. That's the circle of life. The supplemental material for Metroid throughout the series has always referred to as a bounty hunter by trade. But in recent interviews, developers at Nintendo made it clear that they didn't know what a bounty hunter was. They just saw it as a cool Boba Fett space pirate hunter person. And so they just assumed that bounty hunter was person who runs around in space and shoots things. That's what Samus is. That must mean she's a bounty hunter. And then when they were like, well, what kind of bounties does she hunt? And they're like, oh, no, she works for the Federation. Like, no,
she very much like...
That's not a bounty hunter.
It's always been confusing because they've called her a bounty hunter, but she's really just always kind of been a space cop.
Yeah.
If anything...
She's a space marine, effectively.
Yeah, she, full on 40K space marine. That's what Samus is. So she's very much like a space cop's government agent, when she's not just seemingly off doing her own shit.
Yeah, she's a space soldier, effectively. But she is called a bounty hunter repeatedly, despite never actually working as... She's never collected a bounty, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That we know of.
Let's talk about her evolution through the series. We're kind of going up to other M forward because we don't want it's not retro after that.
And also it just kind of solidifies around Other M and just is that character. Yeah. And there hasn't been a ton since Other M. It's just Dread.
So NES era, there's not much here. She's very much an NES video game character where it's like, we wanted a robot person.
It was a cyborg who later is revealed to be a woman.
She got boobies. We surprised you with them at the end because you beat the game real fast.
You don't even see the boobies very much. You just see the hair and kind of the curve of the body. That's as much as you get.
Like your many decades-old disappointment that I get to hear about the boobies.
But if you beat it fast enough, she's totally butt-ass naked. Just ask the kid in the playground.
Yeah. Game Boy Super NES, this is Metroid 2 and Super Metroid. We still don't, like you said, we get a little bit of voiceover at the beginning of Super Metroid.
There is some voice too, but it's not Samus. The voice is not Samus. The text is Samus.
We see a little bit of characterization with her kind of interacting with baby Metroid. Yeah, which it's never really like... The only thing you can really draw from it is a moment of compassion, really. You never really get anything as far as like motherly instincts, which is what they kind of imply later.
Yeah.
It never, like, it seems more like this is like a pet than it is like, it's my baby.
In Super Metroid, they imply that the baby Metroid sees her as a mother.
Right.
But it's never really implied that she feels that way about the baby Metroid. It's more like, this is the thing that I saved that looks up to me like I am its mother.
Yeah, like if you found a baby bird or an abandoned kitten or something, and later on it really wants to make it like a mother-daughter almost feeling thing, and you're like, that wasn't the vibe at the time.
Yeah, in more recent materials, because they try to emphasize her femininity so much, it's like, mother brain killed my child. Like, no, that's never what it was.
Yeah, it's very fucking weird, and you're like, that thing that was gonna suck your fucking brains out of your suit if it got older.
Yeah, and it really gets weird. Granted, the whole series is weird, but it gets weird because it's like Samus is a human raised by Chozo, whose child is a Metroid. Like, that's weird. All this is weird.
Also, we see a little bit of like Federation stuff in Super Metroid. You see some scientists and some laboratories, and you kind of get a vibe that there's some kind of intergalactic stuff going on, like some sort
Federation
of like
is kind of established, but just as a backstory thing.
Right. You get that there is some governmental structure, but you don't really know much about it.
Right. You know that you worked with them to give them the baby Metroid, but that's about it.
Fusion happened.
Yes.
We did a whole episode on Fusion, but this is where we start to really see the Federation, the Galactic Federation as an entity. It is a thing. We already touched on this is when you first kind of learn about Adam Malkovich, who I don't even know if you ever see his last name in Fusion. It's just Adam.
Yeah, he was just Adam, and he called her lady, and it was incredibly
weird.
Yeah.
I always read it in like, "Hey, lady," kind of when
like
when
Jerry
I
Lewis?
play. When I play the game, that's how I.
It feels very emasculating that he calls her lady, and I've never appreciated it.
And then it gets even dumber because later in Other M, it's extrapolated out to every time he talks to her, it ends with "any objections, lady."
Well, he says that once in Fusion too.
Does he say in Fusion?
Yeah.
Well, in Other M, it's like all the time.
Because he says at one time when Samus finally realizes that the AI is built on Adam's personality is when he says, "any objections, lady?" And she's like, "Oh my God, it's Adam."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zero Mission adds to her backstory, but also I think is really some of the only in-game, in-universe positive adding to her backstory. I guess outside of Prime.
Yeah.
Prime is also pretty decent. Like, I don't have any objections with any of the stuff I saw in Prime 1 or 2 as far as adding to her backstory. It's much more focused around like her origins, her relationship with the Chozo, the race of bird people that have gifted her all of these
And I'd also
abilities.
read that the developers at Retro who did Prime, they were given a lot of leeway. As opposed to most Nintendo franchises where Nintendo is very specific. Like, these are the things you can address as far as story or character or anything. With Metroid Prime, they were given quite a bit of leeway just because Japan didn't care that much about Metroid. And so they were like, I don't know, as long as you don't blatantly contradict anything, whatever. And so so they were given a lot of freedom to come up with some of the ideas of Samus and her backstory.
And I think like Zero Mission in the Prime games is like the Galactic Federation thing. It becomes more of a thing as the Prime games go on. By Prime 3, like, you full on have like side characters bouncing around on the screen and shit. Yeah. Not just like evil Phazon, Samus.
Right.
But it's it's a lot of just her backstory. This Chozo, this kind of like this idea that she's kind of not necessarily a chosen one, but like this special Chozo warrior character.
Yeah.
Which I think much better fits the idea of this like solo badass space adventurer than government employee.
Right.
Yeah. I've always liked that more than just the generic Space Federation goon. It always felt demeaning to the status that she felt like they wanted her to have earlier, in the games.
Right.
Other M is where we really get into the kind of Other M forward, the whole thing. I appreciate that the Other M era and forward wanted to give her more personality.
True.
Other M shows her as a young cadet a lot more.
Yeah.
But her only personality trait is having a grumpy face.
Yeah. Being upset and doing whatever Adam tells her to do. That's pretty much her personality.
Petulance.
Yeah.
Her entire personality is petulance, which again is not fitting with 6'3" badass space bounty hunter.
Yeah.
And they really just make her feel like a grumpy little girl.
Yeah, it really frustrated me as somebody who grew up with the idea of Samus.
Badass Samus.
Games. Yeah. And they didn't do anything to dispel it until really Other M, but they started to around Fusion. where they made her less independent and less just badass. And that always kind of frustrated me that they wanted to focus on she is a woman more than they wanted to focus on her just being a cool character.
Right. She doesn't just get to be a person. Yeah. It's, she's not only just a person with these traits, she's a woman.
Yeah.
And it's really driven home with the variant that I call Sexy Samus, which is Samus from Smash Brothers, which is where they're like, what if we had a version of her just in a skin-tight suit with a little flippy ponytail?
Right. Well, granted, they introduced that suit in Zero Mission.
Sure. But it wasn't it wasn't the focus, right? In Zero Mission, when you're doing the Zero Suit section of it, which granted later you can do the whole game in the Zero Suit,
right? But the whole objective is her getting back the power suit.
That's the whole point. Is this kind of like stealth moment, and it's her losing her powers and her trying to regain. Like there's a point to it, other than skin tight bodysuit and high heels.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I don't know. It feels a little.
It is frustrating. It feels like
at its worst, it feels gross and disrespectful.
Yeah.
The way they end up treating Samus a lot of time.
It feels like in recent years they have been a lot more disrespectful towards her. It went from her being a badass space bounty hunter to being, oh, did you know that our space character has ovaries?
Yeah,
and
it's a little sad.
Yeah, it is
a little sad. That said, I think I do feel like Dread kind of clawed some of that back. I know we weren't going to talk about the earlier games or the later games. I mean, but I do want to point out that as much as I have problems with kind of this iteration of Samus and where she went, they're sort of clawing a little bit of it back. Not a ton, but it's just a little bit more of her being like badass,
right?
And a little bit less of like Galactic Federation bullshit going on. Yeah. Dread, they really did kind of let her just go be a badass and do badass shit, which I appreciated from a characterization standpoint.
Right.
So I'm hoping she's getting to turn a corner. I'm hoping that Prime 4, if it ever actually happens, gets to claw some of that back too.
Prime 4 is pretty close now because we've seen actual footage of the game and it has a release date. So
I'll believe it when I see it. When it's on a shelf, I'm like you with Silent Hill. When it's on a shelf and I can buy it, I'll believe it.
Oh no, it's not a definitive release date yet. It's just next year, nebulous.
Oh, nebulous indeed.
Yeah.
Let's talk cameo appearances. She's had a few.
Yep.
Her ship appears in Galactic Pinball on Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
She's in Super Mario RPG, resting in a bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my favorite one. Link also,
and in the remake, she's particularly chibi looking, which is funny.
Well, she was in the original too, but
but I don't know, something about it in high def was extra funny
adorable.
For me. She's in Kirby Superstar and Kirby Superstar Ultra. Yep. Kirby can transform into a statue of Samus.
Yeah, which is cute. You can also pick up the morph ball and the screw attack in that game.
In Kirby's Dream Land 3, Samus meets up with Kirby in the second stage of Iceberg.
Nice.
So she's just straight up in the game and looks real weird in it. It's a very weird proportion to Samus.
The art style in Dreamland 3 is just kind of weird to begin with.
It's all just strange, yeah. Samus and Ridley both appear briefly in Dead or Alive Dimensions, because Dead or Alive is Team Ninja, who made Other M, unfortunately. So, she's in that.
Unfortunately, they did not get the rights to put her in Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball.
Man, they would have fucking killed for that.
Yeah, I would have been so upset. I'd have been so angry.
Non-video game appearances. She's in Captain N.
Yeah, well, the comic version of Captain N. She did not appear on the TV show for some reason.
Right, yeah. The Valiant Comics Captain N.
Yeah, because they couldn't have Mega Man for some reason. I'm guessing.
Right, and she's Lady Mega Man, right?
So she just took Mega Man's place.
But the other robo person.
Instead of her just acting like Mega Man does, instead it's this like romance triangle between Lana and Samus and Kevin where Lana and Samus are both trying to flirt with Kevin all the time.
Yeah.
Which that feels bad. Just feels bad. Don't like it. Don't like that.
We have the Nintendo Power Comics.
Yep. Which we had mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Right. The Super Metroid ones are pretty good. There's one of them where like her proportions are still correct and she's tall and like fucking jacked as shit.
Yeah,
like she's shredded.
Super Metroid one, isn't it?
Is that? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the Super Metroid Nintendo Power comic.
Yeah, that's what I
like
thought.
You see her out of her suit and she's like fucking shredded. She looks like Jake Gyllenhaal in Prince of Persia 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I always appreciated that version. I'm like, yeah, she can be in the like whatever the skimpy outfit or whatever, but like she's this like 6'3" jacked as shit fucking badass.
Right.
Like let her be a badass.
Yeah.
So I did appreciate that. I feel like I remember liking the Nintendo Power comic. I don't remember what my full review was, but there were some cool actiony moments in it.
Yeah.
I do remember that. She also had this friend that was like Blue Man Samus.
Yeah. And
I think he got exploded or some shit.
Well, he probably deserved it.
She was in multiple manga published in Japan, late 80s, early 90s. And then she has a bunch of non-canon video game appearances, which are mostly Smash Brothers.
Yeah, mostly
she's
just
in
Smash Brothers.
She's in Smash and Melee in her power suit only.
Yep.
She's in Brawl, which is when they add Sexy Samus as a second character. You get Zero Suit Samus added.
Yeah. But in
final
Brawl, you would swap between them whenever you did the final Smash.
Yeah.
If you were wearing the suit, it was so powerful that it would blast the suit off of her. And if she wasn't wearing the suit, it was so powerful that her suit appears for some reason.
Why would she have any power in her arsenal that explodes her power suit off of her body?
I don't know.
That's the opposite of good.
Yeah. Well, they took that
Why
away in Smash 4. They stopped making it blow her suit off of her.
Right. Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, both Samus and Zero Suit Samus come back, but they no longer change into one another. Yeah. Smash Bros. Ultimate, both Samuses are back, and Dark Samus is added for 3 Shamuses in total.
Shamai.
You get 3 Shamus in this Smash Bros. Game.
Back to Shamu. Back to the beginning.
All the games are very based on her Super Metroid, Metroid Prime appearance. She's had many different appearances. In Dread, she looks pretty different.
Yeah.
There's the evil versions of Samus across various games. You have the fusion suit in Metroid Fusion.
Yeah, I think in Smash Ultimate, the Dark Samus one of its color palette swaps looks kind of like the SAX from Fusion.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of different versions of Samus, over the years.
There's also 2 different evil Samuses.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Multiple different evil Samuses, which that is a strange one.
Yeah.
Come to think of it.
Yeah.
And then the Zero Suit has stayed pretty static once they really introduced it in Smash as this sexy blue thing with high. Why would you put her in high heels? Why is she in fucking high heels?
The heels are supposed to. It's the same as Chell in Portal. It's supposed to be like foot braces for when she falls from a long distance, so she doesn't break her ankles.
She has Chozo powers, Saturn. She can already jump in. What about fucking Mario? Where's his fucking high heel spring shoes from the movie where he had to have them?
Yeah,
if that's the case, how come his ankles don't break?
So in Zero Mission, they had not yet established that her Chozo powers were innate. It was just in her power suit, which I think is still the canon in the games. So without the power suit, she would have broken her ankles fallen from high up. So they had.
So
to give
would
her the
Ganondorf.
Spring. Well, yeah, but that's a different universe.
He just got regular ankles on him. Yeah. His little fucking feet would snap off.
Well, in Zelda, there's no gravity though.
God damn it! I'm fucking over it. We didn't touch on Metroid Prime Hunters or Metroid Prime Pinball, which is very much they're very much the Prime era and kind of tacks onto the Prime mythos. It looks very Prime.
We also didn't touch on Metroid Prime Galactic Federation Force.
Oh, Federation Force. Oh, that was a fucking piece of shit, man. I was so stoked on that. I was like, oh, Metroid anything. And it was so bad.
That was the Metroid drought, the second Metroid drought.
I'll say this, Metroid Prime Pinball, pretty fucking fun pinball game, and supported Rumble Pack on DS. So one of the very, very few Metroid spin-off games. Only real Metroid spin-off, unless you're counting Federation Force, I guess.
Yeah.
Prime Hunters, I guess you could also call a spin-off, but it was very much What If Prime on DS, so I don't even...
I still think of the Prime games as spin-offs, too. They're not part of the main.
I kind of think of it more as a sister series, kind of like how 2D and 3D Zelda sort of get to exist next to each other.
Yeah.
2D and 3D Mario, 2D and 3D Metroid.
Yeah.
So I kind of think about.
But I still think of the 2D series as the core Metroid series, and the Prime is the spin-off. That's in my mind. That's how that works.
Yeah, I guess because I started with Prime, they're both just 2 sister series to me. Let's talk Legacy.
Okay.
Metroid was very famously not big in Japan.
Yeah.
And so there was long periods of nothing from the Metroid franchise. I think Dread is like the fastest or maybe best or something notable in the Metroid franchise. Like I think it outperformed a lot of previous Metroid games in some metric. I don't remember what it was. I think it was fastest selling,
possibly,
which is a metric that suddenly the game industry talks about all the time. I feel like we didn't used to talk about this one a lot.
Well, it's because back in the day, the games didn't always release on the right day. Sometimes some retailers would get them a month earlier than the other retailers.
I feel like it used to be units or best selling, and now we're like fastest selling. Well, that's just very odd.
You got to move on to the next game so quick. You got to get your sales immediately.
But I would say Metroid is in. There's been some hibernation periods.
Yeah.
N64 era was definitely one of them.
But even during that era, we got to see her in Smash Brothers. So,
True.
She got some cameos.
She still got to exist.
Yeah.
Prime really kind of revitalized interest in Metroid, and then we got the 2 GBA game. Really, the GameCube era for Metroid, for me.
Well, Prime and Fusion came out at the same time.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is the GameCube era for Metroid in general for me is peak Metroid.
Yeah.
Stuff since then. But we're kind of coming back to it. Dread, and we got Samus Returns not long ago. Yeah. Which is nice. Prime 4 is still apparently forthcoming, so the franchise is kind of...
Samus Returns like 8 years ago?
Shut up. It was not. It was just the other year. It was just right before COVID, just a minute ago before COVID happened. There's got to be some name for the weird mass psychosis that we all have about how time works since COVID ended.
Yeah, I'm actually starting to normalize my time again. It feels like it did before.
I'm not there.
That's Samus Returns was 7 years ago.
She is very much considered one of the women of gaming, one of the female representations of gaming. Despite the fact that I don't love, she's kind of had the opposite of the reverse Lara Croft trajectory. A little bit, although again, we did to Nintendo's credit, she is kind of coming back around. I think on the other end,
I hope so.
She's always been one of those characters that they didn't seem to super know what to do with.
Yeah, and also I don't know that they intended for her to be like a feminine icon in gaming. I think they just wanted her to be.
It was a joke.
Yeah, and that's really kind of an unfortunate part of where she started was because. Yeah. The fact that she was a woman was supposed to be like a reward for the player. And like in the earliest games, the only time you ever saw her out of her suit was as a reward. You get to see her in a bikini. Like that's kind of always been sexist.
There's always been this little undercurrent, but it was like, yeah, you got that. And it was like, whatever. But also she still got to be a badass.
Right.
And so I don't know, like it's kind of like that. I don't know. There's a lot that we could get into with like the male gaze and how that paints different things that we just literally don't have time for.
Right.
But I do know that Samus is a genus of sea sponges, so maybe that's what she was named after.
Okay.
That's That's my Samus factoid.
I know that the name Aran, her last name, was apparently taken from Pele's real name.
Oh.
I did read that. I don't know why I forgot to put that in the notes. But I don't remember what they said Samus came from. But the soccer star Pele, his last name was Arantes or something like that, and they just took Aran from that.
As far as final thoughts, I'm shocked that we made it through a whole episode about Samus and did not mention Mother Brain or Ridley really at all, ever.
Yeah, they're also there.
Or Space Pirates.
Yeah, there's also a lot of Space Pirates. Well, Ridley's the head of the Space Pirates.
Didn't mention any of that shit. Does he like talk to him? How does he give them commands? He's just a weird fucking pterodactyl monster. They seem to be kind of humanoid. I imagine they have like language and stuff, and he's just like,
they also make pterodactyl noises. So I guess that's just their language.
They seem a little more civilized. I'm just saying. They've got like clothes and armor and handguns and shit.
They have armor? I thought they were just like space bug things.
Yeah, but isn't it like it's like an armor thing, and then they're like their hands open up and it shoots laser beams? I always thought it was like some kind of armor or some shit.
Yeah, I always just thought they were like space bugs that happen to shoot lasers out of their hands.
Still,
I guess the Prime version looks more like armor, but the non-Prime version always made them just look like space bugs.
Like, did they grow up into a Ridley? Is Ridley like the big boy?
Maybe
of the space. What the fuck is he?
Because like
if not the same species as them.
Yeah, I always just assumed that like eventually they grow wings when they're like the queen of the space pirates.
I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I like Shamus. I think she's a great character. I love the Metroid games. I hope they keep making them.
Exhibit at SeaWorld.
I hope they keep making them.
Yeah, me too.
I'm excited for Prime 4. I hope it dials back a little bit of the kind of like more heavy-handed story of Prime 3 and goes back to the slightly more stoic stories of 1 and 2, where it's just a little bit less exposition and a little more her just being a badass on some abandoned world somewhere.
Right.
I am hopeful for the future of Samus. They seem to have started to embrace that, and I hope they keep going down that path. And if you've not played a Metroid game, then go play a Metroid game.
Yeah, you should just play all of them, really.
Really, any of the mainline Metroid games from either of the mainline Metroid series are pretty good. Other M, maybe not so much. Prime 3 I didn't love. Other than that, Metroid 2 is a little tough to love. Play Samus Returns.
Yeah,
instead.
play Samus Returns instead. And also play Zero Mission over Metroid.
But really, play Zero Mission or Super Metroid. Just play one of those.
Yeah.
And
Fusion and Dread aren't
good.
bad.
And you can... I keep meaning to go back and restart Dread on easy mode. I was just so offended that they added easy mode to it and then made it so you had to restart the fucking game.
Yeah, that is a little annoying.
So frustrating.
I guess if there was enough of a change that it didn't play right when you just switch it in mid-game or something. There had to have been a reason.
I don't know.
Or the
reason is Nintendo. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason.
Did you played Nintendo Land? Did you ever play the Metroid area in Nintendo Land?
Oh, I forgot all about Nintendo Land and the Metroid area. It was so much fun. You got to be in a little ship, shooting little tennis balls at people. That was a blast.
Did you play the multiplayer on that?
Oh yeah, Nintendo Land was just a fucking blast in general. Man, God, that was fun as hell.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a fun game.
I'm so upset that we're not going to see another one because the Wii U failed.
Yeah, that sucks. We need to like get together one day and play some Nintendo Land.
Yeah.
I loved the Zelda game in that. Holy shit, man.
That was one of my least favorites.
Oh, I liked that one. Fuck you, Nintendo, you assholes.
Right.
Taking it from us.
The Mario and the Luigi and the and the Metroid ones and the Donkey Kong were my favorites. Oh, the Donkey Kong one was so good.
My favorites are our patrons over at patreon.com/retrowarriors, where you can get other shit that we make. We hope you like it. And if you don't, fuck.
That's not a command. That's just
no. Maybe. I don't know. You know, it's open to interpretation. We want to thank the following people for sending us money via the internet, which is a thing my parents were terrified of.
Until
turns
they got
out,
Facebook accounts.
Until they got Facebook accounts. Starting with Double Mooch.
And Nicholas Grind.
Nick Brown.
Norman.
Travis Graff.
William Owens.
Ever see a sandwich take a bite out of you?
Pablo. Play every copyright-owned music for 10 full seconds.
Rick J.
And Elsa and Raves.
Have all allegedly sent us money. According to Patreon. I mean, really, what is money other than just numbers on a computer? You know?
Tell that to my landlord.
Yeah, tell him you'll send some numbers from your bank's computer to his bank's computer.
Yeah.
And then all will be well.
Right.
You know?
Totally
fine. He can be happy with all that.
If my employer asks, money is great and I want more of it.
Right, yeah. Yeah. But if anyone else asks, it's a thing we made up to feel important, and now it's just a number in a spreadsheet at a bank.
Oh no, I just found a picture of Ridley from the Japanese Nintendo guide, and he's adorable.
Oh, I want to see this.
He's so adorable. I sent a picture.
Oh, he is pretty fucking adorable.
That's adorable.
Oh, man. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to the show. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.